There was some apparent bad news for Obamacare earlier today when insurance giant Aetna announced that they'd be pulling out of many of the state exchanges that currently help to fund and run various elements of Obamacare, and especially in a funding sense, are integral to the long-term viability of the system. But why exactly are they pulling out of them? You're going to find out in this video. But first, the numbers. While the insurer is offering plans in 15 states this year, something like 550 counties, I believe, it will offer coverage in just 4 states next year, also cutting in half, about half the counties that it'll be doing that coverage in. Now, they announced why, apparently, they've had to pull out of all these states. The spokesman for Aetna says, "This is a business decision based on higher than projected medical costs that result in a second quarter pre-tax loss of $200 million, which we project will grow to in excess of $300 million by the end of 2016. So if you just listen to Aetna, they're saying it's simply not financially feasible to continue doing this. It's just expensive, there's medical costs, blah, 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 blah. Turns out that that's not the whole story, though, because the Huffington Post filed an awesome Freedom of Information Act request, and they found a letter that the CEO of Aetna, Mark Bertolini, sent to the Justice Department last year. This is a big section of the letter, but we're going to read it in full because it explains exactly what their thinking was, what their plan was, and how they're being deceptive right now. Feel free to jump in at any time, obviously. This is from the letter. Our analysis to date makes clear that if the deal, speaking here about a possible merger with Humana, another large insurance company, were challenged and or blocked, we would need to take immediate actions to mitigate public exchange and ACA small group losses. Specifically, if the DOJ sues to enjoin the transaction, basically stop them from doing that massive merger, we will immediately take action to reduce our 2017 exchange footprint. We currently plan, as part of our strategy following the acquisition, so if the merger actually goes through, to expand from 15 states in 2016 to 20 states in 2017. However, if we are in the midst of litigation over the Humana transaction, given the risks described above, we will not be able to expand to the 5 additional states. In addition, we would also withdraw from at least 5 additional states where generating a market return would take too long for us to justify, given the costs associated with a potential breakup of the transaction. In other words, instead of expanding to 20 states next year, we would reduce our presence to no more than 10 states. And I think anyone reading that, and the Huffington Post reporters in this case, agree that is a threat to the Justice Department to not stop the merger.
So that's not unclear.
No.
In fact, I'm surprised they wrote it out that plainly.
Yeah.
Where they say, okay, look, man, you want us to be part of the markets for Obamacare so that it has a better chance of succeeding? Well, you approve my merger and I'll be a bigger part of the markets. You don't approve my merger and I won't. In fact, I'll start to withdraw from it. And they full well know that if they start withdrawing, Republicans are going to use that as a weapon against Obamacare and say, you see that? Obamacare isn't working. That's why Aetna and the others are forced to withdraw from it, when in reality it was a bargaining chip for Aetna. And by the way, the reality could be both, that they might have been losing money, but they'd make so much money from the merger that they're willing to withstand that loss. Or they're making a little bit of money from the Affordable Care Act, but they think it's more valuable to us as a bargaining chip to get that merger, because the merger, by the way, if you're wondering why they're so obsessed with the merger, of course, it might lead to more profits through synergies. It might. But what it's really going to lead to is much bigger payouts for the executive team. And that's the thing they care about the most.
Yeah, exactly. Now, just a couple of weeks after that letter was sent, the Justice Department did start the process that blocked the merger from actually happening. That's why you see them pulling out, going even farther than what they implied in this threat. They're actually going down to far fewer states. But yes, the merger would result in obviously massive bonuses for the executives. It would also provide them, there's already in a lot of areas basically one large insurance company that calls the shots and has a huge amount of bargaining power at every level of the medical care system, from doctors to all of that stuff, blood labs and everything. If you do these sorts of mergers, then you take away even more of the little remaining competition and you give yourself even more bargaining power. And so that ultimately is what they want. Now, it might be that they're thinking about long-term profits as opposed to short-term profits. They probably could continue to make money because there are other letters out there implying in speaking to investors and shareholders that they were doing just fine, actually, and that they're manipulating the numbers to imply losses that don't actually exist. But they could think that, well, if we continue the way we're going right now, we'll make some money, But if instead we pull out, we know that the Republicans are going to continue to try to take down Obamacare. If that actually happened, then we would then once again have free reign to do whatever the hell we want. And so they might be playing the long game in that way.
Okay, so this is the moment where I say, I told you. Of course we needed the public option. Because what? We're going to be at the mercy of private companies? And if private companies decide, hey, you know what, I'm going to make bigger money elsewhere, well, then we're all screwed and Affordable Care Act isn't going to work and we're back to the mess that we were in. Well, you wouldn't have this problem if you had a public option. Oh, Aetna, you'd like to pull out. Go ahead and piss off. Okay, then more people will use the public option, which likely would be more affordable anyway, given the history of cost of Medicare versus private insurance. But we don't have the public option. And now Republicans control the Senate and the House, so certainly under Obama, we have almost no chance of getting it. I mean, if we retake the Senate for the Democrats and Hillary Clinton wins, she claims she's going to fight for the public option, but likely the Republicans would still have the House, and that's a hell of a fight. Or we could have pushed for the public option when Democrats had an overwhelming majority, had a veto, had a filibuster-proof Senate, they had the House, they had the presidency, they had everything, but they chose half a loaf. So enjoy your half a loaf. We told you you'd be at the mercy of private insurance, and that's exactly where you are now.